Mirrors and Dreams, Book 2 of the Unseen Scar series, written and narrated by C.R. Saxon. Chapter 7. If only she could recreate the missing parts of the net, but each attempt failed. Holding the repaired end in one hand, Oya ran her other over the nearby ends. Where should you connect to? Here she thought collecting that woman's connections was draining. But this was putting together 100 billion-piece puzzle without a picture, and at least 1 billion missing pieces. Only giving up wasn't an option. There was no one to help her, and if she did it wrong, it could end up worse than if she'd done nothing. The information flooding her mind every time she searched for the end was overwhelming. Yu was nearly half her age, but the girl's brain held so much knowledge she'd never understand. Don't focus on the information, just the next step. If the end of this strand is point A1, then where is point A2? Where is the break? Or is that part missing? Grating music blared in his ear, but it didn't stop the voice, no matter how loud. The voice always outdid it. Shut up, please leave me alone. Something warm washed over him, pulling him back to the screen filled with the cube's contents. Still, the voice laughed and mocked and told him all the truths he couldn't bear. But the screen. Every time his eyes drifted away, every time he was about to scream, that warmth pulled him back. I have to stop the voice, I have to get rid of it. But how? Aimlessly, he scrolled. His muscles screamed to move. Abused ears rang from loud music. The unwrapped bar crinkled in his bony hand. I want to die. I want this all to be over. Once again, warmth filled his chest and pulled him back. 3 articles he could read sat at the top of the screen. And medicine? The universe fell away. Medicine that fixed a broken mind. Why was this destroyed? And why are they so different? The articles didn't cover production, but there was enough information. Can I recreate these chemical compounds? If this was real, why destroy it? How many hundreds of years were wasted in the field of medicine because of the Council? That vile group was a black mark on the world's history, a black mark the world still adhered to. I could have been stopped before destroying so many. I would have never become a murderer. But you weren't. Shut up. I'll never leave you. Yes, you will. Small hands worked diligently until the instructor spoke. Stopping made Elby cringe. 2 minutes and he'd have finished. Looking up, the young tinkerer focused on Master Nian. It was time for the riddle. Not getting to finish was annoying, but it was his fault for not working faster. Besides, this was the fun part of class. 24 words waltzed off the woman's tongue, each of them a different language. Giggles and moans alike breathed out of his peers, but they went to work decoding. Once he figured out all the words, the next challenge was putting them in the right order, then translating them into something coherent. Amazing how different languages work. Souls, the, magnificent. Elby paused. The next word was used in different languages and had different meanings. Sun, fire, tree, or shirt. Until he translated the rest, he couldn't rule out any, so he wrote down each option. Or he tried. Sun, fire, fire, fire. Why is breathing so difficult? Elby shook his head and swallowed hard against his pounding heart. Focus. Tree. Fire. There was no explosion, but his ears rang. Focus! There was no explosion, but his insides shook. His skin crawled. Lord Albarat? Master Niam's soft, calm voice banished the sensations. I'm panting. Why? And he was covering his face. Not to hide, to protect it. Like when the lab exploded. What was that? Slowly he lowered his hands to the desk and nodded. Gerard did a wonderful job healing his hands. They looked fine, but the student healer wouldn't let him do more than write with them. Even then, it was only allowed for schoolwork. My hands. There was no scarring. The nails were grown in. They looked normal, but they burned, stung. It hurt to move them. It hurt, but he had to keep digging. Lord Elbarat. Master Neeson spoke, quiet as a whisper. Sweat beaded on Elby's skin, and he was panting again. It took everything he had to pull mismatched eyes away from his hands and to the instructor. What do you need? Elby looked around. Everyone was focused on the riddle. His eyes returned to the screen. Sun, fire, tree, shirt, fire, then drifted back to his hands. Yuyu's. What damage did hers sustain? How badly were they broken, shielding her head from that beam? His ears rang. He watched it fall. And his hands, burnt, torn, nails pulled back. A gag left him, startling the room, and making the instructor move sideways. I don't feel well. Without another word, she gathered his few things into his bag and escorted him to the clinic on the first floor. The student healer motioned him to the bed. He probably was supposed to sit, but Elby lay down and curled up into a ball. His hands, he didn't want to look at them, but he couldn't look away. They were whole. There was nothing wrong with them. Healer Herard grew the nails back within days. There was no scarring. How badly was Yu hurt? No word on her condition had been given. It had been weeks in isolation under the constant care of healers. Clean air choked his lungs. His hands screamed, coursing pain up his arms and down to his gut. Retching didn't ease his stomach. The pain. What's happening? His ears rang. His insides shook. His skin crawled. Twittering birds, as Oya called them, sounded from his screen. John hoped for a distraction, but it was a call request from Healer Bear instead. How do I report what happened? The incident in class was already taken care of, but after. Face scrunched up, John accepted the call. Healer Bear, how may I help you? John Dinta, I trust all is well. I need time to figure this out. Actually, it is. Good. The healer's tone invited more detail. Ferdinand's been cooperative with eating and hasn't been sick. After his time in South Chuzo, John was happy to never hear gagging again. He even accepted the next goal without complaint. Wonderful. I'm glad he's doing better. Yes, sir. Better wasn't the right word. Cooperating didn't mean his ally wasn't stressed. Neither did it mean the gent was happy, after what he witnessed. And his weight? He looks about the same, sir. Bear sat back and folded his arms. I'm sorry, sir. Please grant an extension on weighing in. Is there a reason why? A raised eyebrow showed the healer was waiting. Well, I need to get him healthy. But his ally was holding back more than the abuse. Neither did Ferdinan trust him. If he pushed too hard, the gent would push back, or worse, pull away. Promises, expectations, how did he fulfill them both? Well, Bear prompted when John fell silent. Samuel said this problem wasn't short-term or easy to fix. Simple math proved this. Assuming the gent stopped growing, it'd take a year for his ally to reach a healthy weight, if everything went well. But there was more going on than his weight. I need to get him to trust me, so he'll open up about what's going on. Getting his ally healthy was more than a physical endeavor. The fire. Ferdinand hasn't said anything, but I know he's hurting. It's affecting his appetite. A few more weeks. Can we set this aside till then? Disgust filled John. Lying shouldn't be this easy. Between Oya and Ferdinan, he was getting too good at it. Thinking it over, Bear nodded. That's fair. His overall health is more important. Once he's feeling better, we'll reassess. Thank you, sir. Now how do I find Oya? Nearly transparent blue crystals stayed glued on the distilling liquid instead of acknowledging the redhead climbing into his lab with the beautifully carved box. It was rude, but he couldn't tear himself away. What will this actually do? A number of benign side effects were listed in the article, fatigue being the most common. He could live with that. Being tired was better than screaming at a voice only he could hear. It's not going to work. Ferdinand increased the music's volume, then focused on the dosing suggestions. Height or weight? The voice pranced around inside his head, mocking him. The larger dose. Once the water was gone, Ferdinand added powder to the rest of the mixture and grabbed a set of masks and goggles for both him and Oya. Exotic green eyes looked at him in surprise. I know making you wear shoes is futile, but you could be seriously injured if you don't wear these now. I've already hurt Yu and Elby. I can't hurt you too. Giggling, she took the offered mask and goggles. Somehow they made her look wilder than normal. I'm ready. He double-checked hers, then secured his own before pouring the catalyst. The reaction started once the acid touched it. This was nothing new to him, but Oya watched on in awe for some time. Standing near her warmed his soul. Seeing her delight and awe at such a simple thing was amusing. Letting her watch, he cleaned up. All his tools were put away, the tables were wiped down and the floor swept. Leaning back, he took in the sight of her. Why did I manipulate her like that? That's why she doesn't spend as much time with me. But she's here now. Why? Forcing his mind from those thoughts only brought his ally to the forefront. Will he try dragging me to class again? Every morning John came to convince him, but how did he face Master Ludwig or his peers? If he shouted at the voice again, they'd finally realize he was broken. If his mother found out. A shiver ran up his spine. I can't let anyone know. Death's a better option. It'll never work. Do you always come through the window? The question startled Oya, but she grinned regardless. There's more than one way into a building. Amusing girl. How will you kill her? Why isn't the music working anymore? Clenching his jaw, Ferdinand looked out the window. Jumping up, Oya retrieved his violin case. Play for me? Closing his eyes, he shook his head. Playing left him unbearably naked. He couldn't handle that right now. Would you walk with me? Not run? I'm not ready. A week or so. Grinning, she headed to the door. I'd love a stroll. I'll meet you outside after I put this away. His heart stopped as he waited for her to realize, accuse him of what he was about to do. But she didn't. That signature grin glowed at him before she strutted to the window and slipped out. Measuring the larger dose, Ferdinan chewed on his lip. How unacceptable was this? Improper. But the voice's cackling laugh was all the encouragement he needed. Mixing the powder in a small bit of water, he forced down the potent chemical bitterness, stored the rest in his closet, and hurried outside. Exotic green eyes and a gentle breeze met him. Bright sunshine warmed them. Walking next to her, losing himself in the comfort of her warmth, her undeniable presence. You like her, huh? She'll die soon, then. His joy vanished. I'll ruin my country, my family. I'll compromise my prince's position if I don't get rid of that voice. You'll never escape my companionship. After half a year, he'd impel himself to get rid of it. But that was worse. If I were to do that. He wanted to. Only he hadn't suffered enough to serve any sort of justice. Others knowing he was broken would damage his family and country. But making himself die, that'd destroy everything. It'd lose allies and treaties. His country was suffering enough, but his prince would suffer the most, because of him. Like always. When have you cared about others? Ignoring the voice was useless. Screaming in class made that obvious, but even when he was alone. What is it? Oya cocked her head to the side and grinned at him. Sorry, I was lost in thought. I'm troubling her too. I need it gone now. If I double the dose?